Hello everyone, and welcome back to the latest episode of An American in Thailand, airing every Friday. This program is broadcast to you from Ratchamakan University of Technology, Peranakan. This program will come to you in two parts. In the first part, I will introduce a certain topic about being an American here, living in Thailand. Could be about food, travel, culture, and then we'll take a break. And in the second part of the program, we'll get into examples and more specifics about that topic. All right, let's get to the program. Hello everyone, my name is Gary Gray, and I am your host for An American in Thailand. I am an American, obviously, English teacher here at Ratchamakan University of Technology, Peranakan. I've been here for about 8.5 years, so pretty long time. Long enough for me to kind of get a feel for and understand Thai culture, and having lived the entire rest of my life in America, obviously I'm familiar with American culture. So I think I can compare the two. Although I will tell you that for today's episode, we are going to be doing something a little bit different. We're not going to be comparing food or culture. We're not really even going to be comparing anything. We're going to be talking about something which is topical. The word topical means it's kind of timely. So we are airing this episode around the middle of November. So in 2025. So about a week and a half, roughly, before this episode is airing initially, we had some elections back in America. And by the way, when I say America, I mean the United States. I mention this all the time on this episode, on this program, because I have heard lots of people complain about it. There are lots of people from other parts of America, North and South America, the continents, that don't like it when people from the United States call themselves Americans. I'm sorry. That's the only word we have. United Statesers is not a word. Staters is not a word. America is actually in the name of our country, United States of America. So we are Americans. That's what we're called. Sorry. I don't mean that in a way to offend anyone. I do recognize fully that Canadians are also Americans because it's part of North America. Mexicans are Americans because it's part of North America. Even people from Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, Venezuela are Americans because it's South America. I understand that. It's just our name. It's what we're called. We are Americans. So, all right. So we're going to talk about the elections in America that just occurred. I say just, again, we're recording this in mid-November of 2025. So if you're listening to this in 2027 out on YouTube somewhere, well, it's we're talking about something from a while ago. Now, why are we going to talk about that? What is the point? What the heck does that have to do with Thailand? Okay, so in the second part of our program, I will explain why it matters to Thailand. I'm not going to pretend that it matters a tremendous amount, like it's going to change Thailand. No. In fact, it was quite a minor election. The results were pretty huge, but it was a minor election. But I will explain why this minor election might lead to bigger things. That's what I will kind of explain in the first part of our program. And then in the second part of the program, I will explain why that will have some impact on Thailand. Again, I'm not saying it's going to change Thailand remarkably. It's not. It will be, well, one of the issues will have some impact that certainly some people in Thailand will notice. Maybe even some of you listening. There will be one impact that some people will probably notice. And it won't come immediately. It's not like, yay, we had our election. It's going to change now. I will tell you it will be when we talk about it in the second part of our program, I will tell you right now, it is a change that will be positive. It is a good change. And I say that with the understanding that different people have different opinions on politics. Like in America, there are some people that really love Donald Trump. There are people that hate Donald Trump. There are people that love the Republicans. There are people that hate the Republicans. There are people that love the Democrats. There are people that hate the Democrats. Well, not many people love the Democrats right now, but they can still win elections because half of their own party doesn't like them, so they're still going to vote for them, but they just don't really like the leadership in there. And in fact, that is kind of what we saw last week. Okay, so let's talk about those elections. But before we get there, I just want to finish my last thought there, is that I understand that because I'm saying this is going to be positive for Thailand, there are some people who are going to think that I'm taking sides and saying, yay, the good people won in America. That's not what I'm trying to say. There are just different policies that are good and bad internationally that will affect Thailand and other countries for that matter. In fact, it will affect almost every country in the world. One of the biggest issue that's going to come out of this. So let's talk about what that is. Yeah, I'm not picking sides here. It's just the reality of the issues, that the way the election went in America last week is positive for Thailand. And again, I'm not trying to make it sound like it's a huge deal. Don't think I'm going to be telling you that, oh, this is going to be some amazing thing. Wow, yay, great for Thailand. No, small help, but it will help. So let's talk about that. So first of all, like I said, for the first part of our program, we're just going to discuss what happened and why what happened means bigger things will happen. Probably. We don't know. We're trying to predict the future. We don't know that. But probably bigger things will happen. So this was just a small election that took place in America. We only had 3 big races that people were really paying attention to. A governor in the state of Virginia, a governor in the state of New York, in the state of New Jersey, and a mayor in the city of New York, in New York City. Those were the 3 big races everyone was following. There were a couple of other races that were interesting. There was a ballot measure. In other words, like there's an issue that people vote directly on, which I don't think we do very often, if at all, here in Thailand. But there's an issue that people vote directly on. That was in California. That was interesting. There were also some kind of secondary races in Virginia, the state of Virginia, that were also interesting. So what happened in this election last week is that the party of the Democrats won everything. And they won by more than expected, except by some people's expectations in the New York City race. Because the New York City race, that Democrat was pretty far on the fringes for some people. Not for a lot of people. He still won. But for a lot of people, he's pretty far on the fringes. So the opposition kind of ganged up together at the last minute. One of these lesser candidates, all the people, well, not all the people, but about half the people that were going to vote for him went to the more moderate candidate just to try to stop this other guy who was kind of more out on the fringes. So that race, by some people's estimates, the Democrat won by less there, but only some people's estimates. I'm a big political nerd. I actually made a prediction on it, and he actually came in above my prediction. I did kind of see what was happening with the race getting tighter, so I did predict that tightening, and I over-predicted it. So he actually did do better than I expected. But he did worse than many people expected, and that was his name is Mamdani, so he won the New York City race. Okay, but everyone else, all of those other races, the Democrats or the issue that the Democrats support, like in that California one, that California issue, the side that the Democrats support, everything, even some races I never mentioned yet, like Pennsylvania Supreme Court, a couple of ballot initiatives, kind of like what I meant in California, a couple of those in the state of Maine, all of them, the Democrats outperformed. They won everything, but they did better than expected on all of them. Again, except New York City mayor, maybe, depends on where you thought it would be. So it was a huge night for the Democratic Party. And in case you don't follow American politics, and in case you don't know this, the president, Donald Trump, is from the other party. He is from the Republican Party. So what this probably means, again, not necessarily we're making a prediction about the future. Many things will happen. This can change. But just historically, what has happened in history. So this is a small election, right? Just few races. But what has happened in history is that the winners of these races, if you can say that a certain party was clearly the winner, which we definitely can here. This was one of the biggest blowouts ever in American history for a small election like this. If you can say there was a winner, which we definitely can, it was the Democrats, they will almost always go on to win the elections we have the next year. And now that is a bigger election. That is what we call the midterms, so it's in the middle of the president's term. And all of the members of our House of Representatives, kind of like you have here in Thailand, get up for re-election. And some of our senators do. Not all the senators, because they have a longer term, so they come up in groups. So about maybe a third of them, I think it is, will come up for re-election next year. And right now, the Republicans are in charge of both of those, the House of Representatives and the Senate. But it's very close in the House of Representatives. And so what this looks like right now is that the Democrats will probably win the House of Representatives next year. They even have a chance at the Senate, but that's harder because it's a very bad map for the Democrats. What do I mean by it's a bad map? Again, as I said, all the states don't go at once when we're talking about the Senate. So it just so happens that the states that are going next year are mostly very red, very Republican, or very Democratic. So they're not going to change. And those that might change, the few that might, there are just as many that are held by Democrats as held by Republicans. Now, because it looks like Democrats might have a good night next year in those elections, yeah, the Democrats probably will hold on to those close seats, and they could take a couple of ones from the Republicans. Yeah, that could happen. But they need to take quite a few seats to get the Senate. So the Senate, that's going to be hard. But it's not impossible, especially after we just saw what we saw last week. Also, another influence here is on the Supreme Court of the U.S. Now, there shouldn't be any influence. The Supreme Court's just supposed to rule on the law. That shouldn't matter. But it does. The Supreme Court often will kind of adjust their opinions based on public opinion. They're not supposed to, but it does happen. In fact, this has actually been researched and studied, and it is just reality. You would say that they shouldn't do that, but they might. And here's where we get to the impact on Thailand, because right now the Supreme Court is reviewing tariffs. And you know that tariffs from the U.S. are hurting the Thai economy. May not be hurting Thailand as much as some other countries that rely on exports more than Thailand does, because we also have a big tourism industry here. So we have other things that we can do here. But exports are still a big deal in Thailand, exporting products to other countries. And the U.S., because it's the biggest economy in the world, is a major destination for exports. Okay, so let's discuss more about that in the second half of our program. All right, so let's take a quick break now. All right, welcome back. So we're talking about the recent U.S. elections, and in this second part of the program, we're going to talk about why it matters to Thailand. And as we finished off the first part, I started explaining it. And the most important factor is the tariffs. The tariffs are hurting the Thai economy because Thailand doesn't actually pay the tariffs, which is something that the American president likes to say, which is just silly. But it still hurts the Thai economy because things from Thailand now cost more in America. So that means Americans either have to buy less of that product because they can't afford it, or find a cheaper version of the product that maybe comes from another country altogether. So they won't buy it at all from Thailand. So they either buy less or not at all from Thailand because of the tariffs. So it hurts the economy. And also, a lot of countries are putting tariffs back on the U.S. And that also hurts the economy. I mean, tariffs are just bad both ways. When they use something called targeted tariffs, that could be okay. That can be okay. Sometimes countries have to do that. I mean, if otherwise we wouldn't even have the word. If tariffs were just bad, 100% totally, never worked, never did anything good, why would anyone ever do them? So that's why we have the word, because they can be good under certain circumstances. But general broad tariffs are not ever good. And so if Thailand then puts tariffs back on the U.S., that also hurts the Thai economy, because the consumers in your own country are actually who pays the tariffs. So it means that products coming from the U.S. that Thai people buy are going to cost more. Now, I don't know if Thailand has done that and put tariffs back on the U.S., but most countries have. Also, it's probably not going to hurt the Thai economy too much, because I know Thai people don't buy a lot of stuff from the U.S. It's more people from the U.S. buying stuff from Thailand. But we certainly do buy some. If you just go to Tops or Foodland, go to a grocery store, you'll see products there from the U.S. So there are some. And the price of those is going to go up if Thailand has put those tariffs back on the U.S. So things are going to cost more here. So the tariffs are just bad. They're just bad for everyone. And what the election last week means is that those tariffs may go away. It won't be immediate. It's going to take time. But there's two reasons why. There's the direct result of the elections next year, if they go as last week's election indicate they will go. And then there's also the indirect influence on the Supreme Court that I mentioned. So, the influence on the Supreme Court, here's the issue. In American law, it's probably Probably. We're waiting for the Supreme Court to decide. It's probably illegal for the president to have put these tariffs in place by himself. He does not have the power to do that. Probably. He says he does, so he did it. Well, the Supreme Court is deciding on that right now. Now, their decision, they wait to actually issue their decision. Their decision may not come out for months. When I say they're deciding on it, they're hearing the case. And when I say now, I mean now. I was just listening to some of the arguments being made yesterday about it. So they're doing that now. So as I said, the Supreme Court can be influenced by elections. They should not be. That's not a good thing, but it's reality. And so after yesterday's elections, they are probably going to be more inclined to rule against Donald Trump. And I'll be honest with you, I said I listened to some of the questioning. It sounds like they're already pretty skeptical. I already think he might lose, even without the election. But the election is certainly going to help push them even more. And understand that if he loses that case, these tariffs will probably disappear instantly because he had no authority to do it. Can't do it. Not going to happen. Okay, and then we talk about next year's election. Okay, well, he has to, if he wants to do those tariffs, he has to get the approval from Congress to do it. Now, I will say under the current Congress, which I said is controlled by his party, Republicans, there are enough of those Republicans that oppose this anyway, that he probably still couldn't get it passed. So the tariffs probably won't get passed through our Congress and get put in place. But there's at least a small chance that at least some of the tariffs could come back under the current Congress. Well, if the elections next year go like this year's did, and they usually do, then the other party, the Democratic Party, will take over the House. And if they do, these tariffs are done. They're never coming back. Well, I can't say never. Maybe 20, 30, 50 years from now. Who knows? But in the near future, these tariffs are never coming back. And so that will help the Thai economy. It will bring the prices down of anything coming in from the U.S. if Thailand has put in place their own tariffs against the U.S. I'm not sure we have. But it will certainly help companies that are doing a lot of exporting to the U.S. Companies doing exports to the U.S., which there are a lot of in Thailand, that will improve. So the Thai economy will get a bit of a boost from this. It won't, again, it's not going to be huge. There are plenty of other countries that Thailand exports to. Thailand also has other industries, like we have a big tourism industry. Thailand also does not have the worst tariffs. In fact, it has some of the lowest tariffs even though they're very high. They're still lower compared to some other countries. It has some of the lowest tariffs in Southeast Asia. And that's because Thailand exports a little less to the U.S. It's because Thailand has other industries, so it doesn't depend so much on the export. It has the tourism industry, whereas countries like Laos and Vietnam, they're just exporting massive amounts to the U.S., and that's how the president determined the tariff levels. So, those tariffs are hurting the Thai economy, but it's like I said, it's not going to be a huge deal. I'm not saying, yay, economy is going to get great here in Thailand. No. And we didn't have those tariffs even just 9 months ago, so it's just back to where we were. Yeah, so I'm not saying it's some great, wonderful, exciting thing, but things will get a little bit better. The economy in Thailand will improve a little bit because these tariffs are going away. There are also a couple of other positive things. There's the immigration policy. Again, this is another thing that's not going to change overnight. The president does have some authority to do certain things related to that by himself. And last week's elections were not for a bunch of congressional seats. We have to wait till next year for that. So all last week's elections do is point to maybe next year's elections having the same results. And so the immigration policy could change if the U.S. Congress tries to push some changes. Again, it's going to be hard, though, because the president does have some authority. So this is not going to be a huge change, a change right away overnight, but it still could be a positive change. And so what am I talking about with the immigration policy? It's become more difficult for people of other countries to move to the U.S. because of our changes in immigration policy. In fact, I have one of my students right here who tried to move to the U.S. I was just talking to him about it this week. Last week, as of when this will air, just the day before the election, actually. I was talking to him about it, and he said he can't move there because it's too difficult to get approval now because of all of these rules. He wants to move there because his aunt lives there. He speaks good English, so he wants to go there, go to university there, study there. I'm kind of glad he's not, because I'm glad he's my student. He's a good student. I'm glad he's here in my class. But he wants to go there. He can't. And he says it's because of these new policies. Now, most Thai people can still visit the United States pretty easily. That hasn't changed too much. I mean, even that has changed a little bit. They're making it a little harder to get in for some people. But generally, that hasn't changed too much. But if you want to move there, even be a student there, I think they're tightening that up a little bit as well. I know they're tightening it up for some countries. I don't know if they're tightening it up for Thai people. So that might not be too difficult. Although, as I said, my student was unable to do it. So they're making it harder to do that. They're making it harder to go there, whether it's to go to school there or to live and work there. So that will probably change. That will probably ease up and make it easier again for Thai people to go there. And there are some other issues as well. For example, I mean, a lot of people don't even want to go there right now because they're afraid because of the whole immigration thing. Also, with all of the defunding that's been going on, for example, some of our national parks aren't even open or aren't fully open, or maybe they're dangerous because the park rangers aren't on duty or whatever. They're understaffed. Maybe they're dirty because there's trash around because they don't have people working there to clean it. The United States has some of the most beautiful national parks in the world. It's because the United States is pretty big geographically and has a lot of different types of weather. Like in the south, it's almost into the tropics. Not quite, but it's very tropical-like weather, like if you're down in Florida. And in the north, it can be very cold. Lots of snow in the winter. So we have and we have a desert in the southwest. So we have many different climates all over. And so it creates many different types of, environments, whether it's forests or like the Grand Canyon in the southwest. We have lots of different types of national parks. So it's beautiful. It's a beautiful place to go visit. But some of them are closed or not fully open or not properly staffed. And then you have the whole treatment of people coming from other countries. So who even wants to go to the U.S. right now? Who wants to go there? I can tell you that tourism to the U.S. is way down, especially tourists from Canada. That is way, 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 way down. So a lot of people don't want to go to the U.S. And so this also is going to change. Again, it's going to take till next year. It's going to be a slow change. Next year, we have to wait for those elections. We have to hope that those elections come out the same as last week's elections, because Congress is actually in charge of funding. So they will be passing the measures to fully fund, like the national parks, for example. And that's such a small amount of money in the big picture of everything that America spends money on, that even if the president is against that, he'd probably compromise and sign that bill because it doesn't matter. It's not a big deal. It's not a lot of money. And so the national parks will probably all get open fairly quickly and fully staffed. I should add that because some of them I know are open. Maybe all of them are open, but not fully staffed. They'll all be open, fully staffed, probably quite quickly after, not necessarily after the next election. You have to then wait 2 months for those new people voted in to actually take office. So a couple months after that, pretty quickly, that'll probably happen. That'll probably happen fairly quickly. And then the other part of the changes would go along with kind of what I mentioned with the immigration policy, not necessarily moving there, but you'll just feel more welcome if you're visiting America if we can get rid of some of these anti-immigrant, anti-foreigner policies. So that's another positive thing for Thai people if they want to visit America. It would be more attractive. It would be a nicer place to go to if those elections go that way. But the biggest thing, really, I mean, those are small things because a lot of Thai people can't afford to travel to the U.S. It's expensive. I know. I try to go back as often as I can. I have not been back in a few years because it's too expensive. Can't go there. So the biggest thing really is the tariffs. That's the biggest thing, is that this election is probably an indication, again, they're not going to go away right away, is probably an indication that the tariffs will be gone soon. When I say soon, probably several months. It's going to take until the Supreme Court makes a decision. And then there is a small danger that they come back because the Congress right now is Republican. But like I said, we get those elections next year. This year's elections are an indication of what might happen. And so for next year. And so it is likely that the political setup in America will change after next year. And so all of these tariffs are probably going away. So that is the impact of the American elections on Thailand. It's not a huge impact. Like I said, the tariffs are higher in other countries in our area. In Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia, the tariffs are much higher than they are in Thailand, but we do still have them here. And those will probably go away over the next year. Sometime during the next year, those will probably go away. And then after next year, because of the results of that election, they probably will not come back. They will be gone for good. All right, so that is the main impact of the U.S. elections on Thailand. All right, so thank you for joining us for today's episode of An American in Thailand. Let me reach out to any of the young people out there and ask them to consider our wonderful university here at RMUTP, Ratchamakon, University of Technology, Peranakan. Okay, please stay with us and tune back in next week for another interesting episode. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you.